Welcome everyone to imaginativevisions.com. This is Across the Pond. This will also be on the watch log. Justin here, back with more reviews from our friends across the pond. And today I have a show that I've been anticipating since I saw the trailer. I was like, I like this concept. This looks hilarious. And I finally got a chance to finally watch the entire series. One, we're going to be talking about Android. And as always, I give you a brief synopsis of the show. So here we go. It's Sue's worst nightmare. An overly attentive, socially secondhand robot caregiver. But maybe this droid has its uses. And this is starring Diane Morgan and Sue Johnston. And let's talk about Android because I fell in love with this show. And I knew I was going to be a fan of this once I saw the premise, I saw the trailer. This is a very light-hearted, warm, honestly, believe it or not, at some points, pretty dramatic. And I was wrestling of I know it's a sitcom comedy, but I honestly, after watching the show, there's key moments in here that I will kind of put it more into the dramedy. There's plenty of drama, plenty of scenes that have like those emotional beats to it. And I thought that they really conveyed that very well. So I'm gonna do a talk a little bit real quick about spoiler free about the story, the characters, episode that's a highlight for me, and then I'll do my final rating. So let's talk a little bit first about the story. What immediately worked for me about Android is that it does not waste time trying to build some enormous sci-fi mythology around its premise. The series is set in the near future, robots exist as part of everyday life, and that's really all the explanation we need. The technology is there to serve the characters rather than the other way around, which allows the show to concentrate on Sue and what she's experiencing inside, or burying everything underneath complicates the rules about artificial intelligence. But Sue's resistance to Linda also makes sense because accepting a care robot means accepting that her life has changed, and she does not necessarily see herself as someone who needs to be looked after. And that's what I really loved about the character. And there's this important difference between asking for help and having everyone around you deciding that you need it. And that's Sue's situation. And the series understands that tension, that tension of Sue being combative about getting help. And Sue is the familiar stereotype when we first see her of an older person who simply refuses to understand modern technology, really refusing to understand that, yeah, you're at an age now that you might not be able to do for self and you might need some help. And Sue wrestling with that is just like, I'm losing my independence, and her frustration is tied to something much much more deeper, and she wants to maintain that control over her life at a point when other people are beginning to question whether she can. And then we have the android Linda, who obviously who really complicates the situation because she's technically there to make sure life is easier, while kind of doing the opposite. And she can understand instructions without understanding the emotional meaning behind them. And she has a habit of approaching very human situations with literal logic, which you expect from an android or AI. And that gives the show plenty of opportunity for the comedy, but it also becomes the foundation of Sue and Linda's relationship. And what begins as something uncomfortable gradually does develop into something of a true friendship. And I really did like how the series progresses these two characters. Sue doesn't decide that Linda's her new best friend, and Linda does not magically become a human after a couple of episodes. They are spending time to know each other. The series takes its time. And let's just talk a little bit about the characters because Sue Johnston gives the series its emotional center. Sue is grieving, but the show never allows grief to become the entire personality. But there are a lot of moments in here, some real touching moments, and some brilliant acting by Sue Johnston that really hammers home the emotional weight that she's dealing with when it comes to loss and being a widow and her sons and certain things that she wished that she had in her life that just never happened. And I could really appreciate Sue in this series just treating her life as something that is still happening, and she's not simply sitting around remembering everything she used to have. She still wants things. She gets irritated by people. She makes questionable decisions and finds herself in situations she probably did not expect to experience at this stage of her life. And that's what makes this series feel refreshing, because the story is not just about Sue reaching the end of something. In many ways, Linda becomes part of a strange new beginning. And Diane Morgan is equally important as Linda, as she gets this incredible amount of comedy out of the character without needing constant punchlines. The performance is extremely physical. The stiff posture, the delayed movements, the unusual expression and manner of fact of delivery, and all make Linda feel just slightly disconnected from everybody else in the room. Even when she's standing in the background doing almost nothing, there's often something funny about the way Morgan holds herself. And some of the best moments come for usually when she says something completely inappropriate without realizing why everyone else is uncomfortable. Their chemistry is really good, but I definitely have to talk about Paul Reddy's Michael. And my God, let's talk about Michael. Michael. Oh man, Michael needs a hug. Michael needs support. Michael needs to meet a new woman. Not to get into much details, but I love Paul Reddy's performance of Michael, because Michael moves in with Sue, lives with Sue after the passing of his father and Sue's husband, obviously. And he's there to help her heal. But Michael also has some situations and things that he has to deal with as well, such as a marriage that he's trying his hardest to repair. And I won't tell you what happens with his marriage. All I will have to say is, when you watch the episodes, when you watch this series one, when you watch his interactions with his estranged wife, and you she is so I might, if I ever do a list of most hated characters in 2026, I can't stand Michael's wife, because which, first of all, what she did to Michael's messed up. What she continues to do to Michael is messed up. And what happens later is messed up. And there seems to be no redeeming or being apologetic about it. And she tries to justify what she's done because Michael wasn't around. And that's probably my only hit I'm gonna give you. What happens when people say that you weren't there for me? What's the usual excuse for them to go or try to play the field? That's the only thing I'm gonna give you. My God, and Michael is a musician. He never made it, but he's a musician. He worked in this retail music store. He's having issues, and of course, Sue's going through her stuff. So I love, like, some of the dramatic moments that come are it hits Michael later, and we get to really see Paul Reddy's acting chops as well when it comes to this. But I thought Michael's character. I was watching this. I was like, man, bro, if I was there, I will be that support system, like help you up, bro, pick you up, and tell them like, yo, this woman's no good for you. Be like bros will be for bros when they're going through some real shit. Michael was going through some stuff, man, and this comedy here, of course, with Linda and Michael's reactions, which is funny. I thought I laughed my ass off because Linda, and it goes back to what I was saying, that Linda has these inappropriate comments that, because the android is so logical and Diane Morgan's delivery is so deadpan that it works, and I was just literally laughing. But there, like I said, I put this more of like a dramedy. It's completely a hilarious show, but those moments where it really wants to hit you with the emotional core, it does a really good job. And I'm going to talk about my favorite episode, and then I'm going to give you my final score. My favorite episode, honestly, is episode 3. And this is where Android really finds that perfect balance between its humor and its heart. And without spoiling what happens, the episode takes Sue and Linda away from their normal surroundings and gives them a seaside adventure that eventually brings them into a rather questionable funfair. Simply putting Linda into an environment creates plenty of opportunities for awkward interactions and physical comedy, and Morgan takes full advantage of them. But what makes this episode stand out for me is that not just because it's funny, by this point, Sue and Linda's relationship has started to change. And the episode gives us a chance to see how comfortable they have become around each other without drawing attention to it. Sue is no longer simply dealing with the robot her son brought her into the house, and Linda has slowly become someone she expects to be there. So Michael also gets his own storyline involving his musical ambitions. So this is more of a full-blown characterization, character study on these characters that was set up from episode 1 and 2. And this is only a 6 episode series so far, and for at least series 1. I'm not sure if they're going to get renewed for series 2, but I really did enjoy this episode because there is plenty of heart in here, some oddball comedy, some physical humor, and the family dynamic increases as the touching relationship of this particular episode. And once again, this is more than just a robot comedy. And you're probably wondering, how is the humor? Like I always say, comedy is subjective. And but I will have to say Diane Morgan's physical comedy is the major strengths, the movements, the delivery. Sue Johnston also delivers some funny moments as Sue, and Paul Reddy as Michael has some hilarious moments as well. And like I said, there's also some real emotional heart to this as well. And the biggest surprise is how quickly the robot element becomes secondary to everything happening around it. Linda is obviously essential to the story, but the series is ultimately more interested in what her presence reveals about Sue and the people surrounding her. Technology becomes another way of exploring how difficult it can be for families, but to talk openly about aging and loneliness and independence. But under the heart of this is really just an examination of a woman who has dealt with loss, who's confronting age, who's confronting loneliness, and really just trying to, I guess, live out the remaining of her years as painless as possible. And I really have to just say I really did enjoy this 6 episode length, and it works well because that concept never overstays its welcome, and it doesn't stay enough to feel repetitive. 6 episodes was perfect for this. So we are going to bring up the remote rating. All right, time to bring up our remote rating, and I am going to give Android the highest rating we give it when it comes to streaming and television shows. I'm going to give this a binge-worthy rating. I literally sat there and watched all 6 episodes. Each episode is like 26 minutes to 29 minutes, so it's not like an hour each, so it's not going to take you too long to finish the series. I had a hell of a time with this shoot. Sue Johnson and Diane Morgan nailed it. Paul Reddy was excellent. This was a fun show filled with a lot of British humor references. It is just a really warm comedy. If you need something that's positive, if you need something to chuckle and something that's actually moving, go watch Android. It's a fun show. Highly recommend it. This is Justin from across the pond in the watch log. If you like what we do here, hopefully we earned your subscription. Please hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. I'll be back with more reviews from our friends across the pond over there in the UK. So much good shows we're missing out on because of freaking region restrictions or don't come to our streaming services. So I'm happy maybe I'm able now to finally get to review a more wider shows outside of the Hollywood bubble. So this is really exciting for me. So and I'm learning more, which is way more important. Learning more about more styles and coaches and storytelling. So this is really beneficial for me. Anyway, I'm rambling too much, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later days.